Welcome back to Outside Views, your home for unfiltered analysis on Britain's endless political roller coaster. And today we're tackling something that many in Britain would rather whisper about than admit out loud. And the simple and awkward truth, Brits want to reverse Brexit, at least in practice. Yeah, you heard that right. The Brexit revolution is quietly being undone. Let's dive deep, because the story is much juicier than any official would ever dare to say out loud. First, let's be clear. No, Britain isn't joining the EU again tomorrow. There won't be a big dramatic flag-raising ceremony with Beethoven's Ode to Joy playing in the background. But if you look closely at what's happening, the deals, the diplomacy, the policy shifts, you realize that Brexit in real terms is being reversed piece by piece. And the evidence is everywhere. Prime Minister Keir Starmer promised a reset of relations with Brussels, and according to experts like Susie Dennison from the European Council on Foreign Relations, that reset is well underway, especially in the field of defense, energy and economic cooperation. And why now? What could have possibly driven these two stubborn ex-partners back toward each other? Well, ironically, as I said it before, it's none other than Donald Trump. Yes, the man who despises the EU more than Brussels bureaucrats despise long working hours. Trump's unpredictable presidency has pushed Europe and Britain back together, like a pair of grumpy divorcees, realizing that living apart was a bit more complicated than they thought. Faced with a volatile United States, Europe and Britain are suddenly remembering they actually have shared interests, especially when it comes to standing up against Russian aggression, maintaining energy security, and, let's be honest, surviving economically. But hold on to your tea, because it gets better. While official Brexit cheerleaders still pretend everything's fine, the British public is singing a very different tune. Polls show that a majority now believes Brexit was a mistake. They accept that Britain probably won't rejoin the EU anytime soon, but they absolutely want closer cooperation. They want easier trade. They want energy partnerships. They want defense pacts. And in short, they want the benefits of EU membership without these messy politics of rejoining. It's Brexit reversal by stealth. And honestly, can you blame them? Brexit has turned out to be less of a glorious rebirth and more of a bureaucratic nightmare. Take food, for example. Trade disruptions, higher costs, more red tape. It's like someone swapped Britain's smooth supply chain for a DIY IKEA kit missing half the pieces. Or migration. One of the biggest promises of Brexit was to take back control of the borders. Well, yeah. Congratulations. Since Brexit, net migration into Britain has actually gone up. And meanwhile, key industries like agriculture, hospitality and healthcare are begging for workers. It's almost as if, and stay with me here, cutting yourself off from a huge nearby labor market wasn't the smartest idea ever. And yet, despite all this, the Brexit narrative still lingers, because in politics, admitting you were wrong is the ultimate taboo. Especially when you have spent years telling voters that Brexit would be the dawn of a new golden age. Instead, Britain got queues at Dover, higher prices, fewer workers, and a government scrambling to patch things up behind the scenes without looking like they're patching anything up. It's, political theater at its finest. And speaking of patching things up, let's talk about defense. Britain is moving towards a major defense pact with the EU. And why? Because suddenly, after Russia's invasion of Ukraine and Trump's threats to NATO, Britain realized that being independent sounds nice on paper, but not so great when missiles start flying. The defense deal won't be branded as rejoining anything. No, it will have a shiny new name. Maybe something like Strategic Autonomy Partnership. Sounds important, sounds serious, and crucially, it doesn't sound like surrendering sovereignty, even though it absolutely is about pooling resources and making joint decisions. Brilliant marketing, really. And now let's talk about the economy. Britain also has been hammered by Trump's tariffs. That special relationship is starting to look like an overpriced, one-sided subscription service. So guess what? Britain is pivoting back to Europe. Energy cooperation, food trade alignments, even possible youth mobility schemes. Piece by piece, step by step, Brexit's walls are being quietly chipped away. But make no mistake, this isn't happening because the political class suddenly had a change of heart. It's happening because reality finally caught up with the slogans. Because businesses screamed, because universities begged, because supply chains buckled, because ordinary people got sick of pointless paperwork, expensive groceries, and visa nightmares. And now Starmer's government is doing the only thing it can do, rebuild bridges without openly admitting it's rebuilding bridges. It's like a magician who saws a lady in half, you know that, but then spends the next 2 hours desperately trying to glue her back together without the audience noticing. And speaking of audiences, the British public seems ready for it. According to surveys, the majority would support deeper ties with Europe. They don't want another 5 years of shouting matches about fish quotas. They want stability, prosperity, and normalcy. Imagine that. Normalcy being the radical new idea. But don't expect any politician to come out and say the words reverse Brexit anytime soon. No, that would be political suicide. Instead, it will all be couched in soft languages like partnerships, alliances, frameworks for cooperation. Anything but the B word. And yet, the direction of travel is obvious. Closer, not further apart. More ties, not fewer. Reality, as it turns out, doesn't care much about sovereignty slogans. It cares about logistics, trade, security, and the simple need to make life livable. And when reality clashes with ideology, well, reality usually wins, eventually. So here we are, 5 years after Brexit, and the United Kingdom is, in practice, moving steadily back toward Europe. Not because politicians want to admit mistakes, not because national pride has been swallowed, but because survival trumps ideology every time. And no pun intended here. And in an uncertain world with economic storms, geopolitical threats and climate crisis, going it alone sounds less like bravery and more like madness. And of course, not everyone is happy about this. The hardliners are furious, and Nigel Farage is probably foaming at the mouth somewhere as we speak. And Reform UK is screaming about sovereignty. But out there in the real world, where businesses, universities and hospitals actually have to function, there is no room for fantasy, only pragmatism. So here's the uncomfortable truth that Britain is slowly, awkwardly embracing. Brexit might have been sold as a clean break, but history, economics and geography have other ideas. Britain is a European nation. It always was, it always will be. And now, bit by bit, deal by deal, cooperation by cooperation, it is, however quietly, finding its way home. So thanks for joining me here today on Outside Views. And if you found this little dive enlightening, or frustrating, or just plain fascinating, make sure to like, subscribe and hit that notification bell. We've got plenty more uncomfortable truths coming your way. Until next time, stay skeptical, stay curious, and don't believe everything you are told, especially if it fits too neatly on the side of a bus. And if you want to see another video right now, the next one is right here in the end screen.